أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So can I hear an answer from you? Okay. So we've been talking about Surah Yusuf, and I've asked you to memorize just those 5 words. نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص. We tell you the best of stories. And I told you what qasas was. Qasas was a story that is passed down from generation to generation to generation. But before we go there, just some slight reminders about the month. And I know how good you've been. Do you have a Muharram corner? You've sent me so many pictures. I've got pictures of so many alams, and they're absolutely phenomenal. I've got 2 pictures of Muharram corners, but a Husseini corner. Create a Husainiya in your home. Say the Fatima Zahra comes to every Husainiya. So I can see from the pictures I've got that you've sent them. I'll try and put them all together at some stage so you can see what I have here. Did you remember to recite Assalamu alaikum ya Aba Abdullah every time you drink water? Every single time. Did you try and find out about the 72 companions? We know so little. There are only a few that we remember. But how about all the others? They were phenomenal. What about your handkerchief? Do you have a handkerchief? Do you keep it with you? Do you wipe your tears with it? And then what about every day? Do you have simple food? Do you make sure that you're sad? Because these are days to remember those who are oppressed. How can we help them? Last night, I was watching a documentary on Syria and Lebanon. Oh my goodness, there was a 5-year-old girl who couldn't even speak because she was so traumatized. What she had seen her mom and dad being killed, and she had so much, there was bombing going on, and she was covered with wounds. There was another man who said, I lost 24 members of my family. So Muharram is there to remind us that we have a responsibility towards humanity. Whatever little we can do. If you can't do anything, at least raise your hands in dua and feel sad for them. And ask in the name of Imam Hussein that their peace ensues, that Allah gives rahmah in the heart of these oppressors. Okay, so back to Surah Yusuf. We started off by looking at the dream of Prophet Yusuf. And then yesterday we saw how his brothers had put him into the well. I know you're waiting for my marthia, but we're going to do this at the end today because I forgot. Okay, so let's start. So his brothers put him in a well. And I told you that well was called Jub because it wasn't like an ordinary well. It was like a hole. And this hole that was there had been built up as in the sense that the water led to the sea, and then there was a ledge where you could stand on. So they had left him there, and they left him with some food as well because they were feeling a little bit guilty. And remember, they had some funny things going on in their head. They said, well, once we get rid of Yusuf, then we will start being good and our papa will like us. Our dad will like us a lot more. That's really just the most skewed thinking in the world. But some people believe that. Sometimes they make themselves think that something they've done is okay if we forget about it, if we don't talk about it. But it'll always come and haunt you unless you put it right. So now they've put him in the jub. Now it's the 3rd of Muharram, which is today. Can you imagine? On the 3rd of Muharram, he's very, very weak. And he hears some sounds. He hears some animals. And he hears some people. And then suddenly, a man drops a bucket into the well. It splashes, and Yusuf is splashed with water. He cries out, and he pleads for help. He said, oh man, pull me out. The man said, oh my goodness. Surah number 12, Surah Yusuf, same one we're looking at, ayah 19. وَجَاءَتْ سَيَّارَةٌ, and the caravan came. That means all these people on camels and horses came. فَأَرْسَلَهُ وَارِدَهُمْ فَعَدْلَى دَلْوَهُ, and they sent the person who goes to get their water with the bucket. And Qala, he said, Ya Bushra, oh my, what good fortune. Hada gulamun, this is a young man, this is a boy here. وَأَسَرُّهُ بِذَاتًا وَاللَّهُ عَلِيمٌ بِمَا يَعْمَلُونَ. And you know what they did? They hid him. They hid him inside all their things because they were a trading caravan. They didn't want anybody to see because now they had kidnapped him. We first saw how his brothers had kidnapped him and put him in the well. Now they had kidnapped him because in their eyes they saw money. And they thought, if we sell him in the slave market, we will get some money. They knew that he came from a family around here. He was very young. 9, 10, 11, 12 maybe. That was the oldest he could have been. Okay, so a really young boy. And they stole him. They fed him. They gave him dry clothes. And he was thankful for that. But they wanted to get rid of him and get some money for him as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, can you imagine Prophet Yaqub? He just cried and cried on his musalla. And this is my favorite ayah of the Quran. Surah Yusuf, ayah 86. Qala. He says, Innama ashku bathi wa huzni ilallah. I only complain to Allah of my bathi. Bathi is grief that eats you up inside. It's not grief or sadness that happened the same time. It's something from the past, something that happened before, but it eats your inside up. Huzn is fresh grief. So he said, that grief of Yusuf is eating me up, but I'm only going to complain to Allah. He says, وَأَعْلَمُ مِنَ اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. And I know from Allah what مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, which you do not know. But he only says, Innama ashku bathi wa huzni ilallah. Remember that one. Whenever you're sad, sit on your musalla. Say, Ya Allah, I only complain to you. He kept on saying, Oh Yusuf, if only I knew upon which mountain you were, or which sea you're in. I wish what had happened to you did not happen to you, but happened to me. So on one side, we have Yusuf being kidnapped by these people, taken towards Egypt, and we have Prophet Yaqub crying on his musalla. He misses his son so much, and he doesn't know what's happened to him. Well, 18 days later, they come to the slave market of Egypt. And when they come there, they sold him quickly. They didn't mind how much money they got. They just didn't want to be known as kidnappers. They wanted to sell him and just run away. That's what people do when they steal things, right? So they saw a government official, and he's known as Aziz. Aziz actually means the noble one, the one who is like important one. And they sold him for 20 silver pieces. That was a bargain. That was a price for killing a hunting dog in error. So if you killed a dog by mistake, a hunting dog, you paid 20 silver pieces. The Aziz thought, my goodness, I have a bargain. And when he spoke to Yusuf on the way home, he knew that this boy was well brought up because his manners were impeccable. You know, when you behave well, then the dua is, may Allah have mercy on your mom and dad. But when you don't behave well, I'm not going to tell you what people say. So you owe it to your parents to behave really well. He got home. His wife Zulaykha, she was beautiful. She came to the door. And he told her, look after him. Maybe he's somebody whom we can adopt as our son. For 9 years, he lived in the home of Aziz and Zulaykha, and she looked after him really well. Now he'd grown up to be an awesome young man. Everybody liked him. He was handsome and he was impeccably mannered. That means he was beautiful, handsome, inside and out, not a word in any way. He just liked to look at him and listen to him. And then some things happened. And he was accused of something that he didn't do. And he was put into prison. Can you imagine? Look how much he went through. Sometimes we think that when we go through difficult things, we think, Ya Allah, is it because you don't love me? But he does. He must have loved Yusuf so much. But he was putting him through all these tests so that they make you grow. sometimes when things are difficult, they make you grow. They make you better people. So now he is in prison. Now in the prison, there's also the king's baker. And there's also the person who made the drinks for the king. So both of them are in prison. And Yusuf used to talk to them like they were his friends. And they loved him. They loved him to talk to them. And every single morning, they would tell him what they had dreamt of. And he would tell them the meaning of their dreams. And it just so happened that he became one of those people who could tell them everything about their dreams as just something phenomenal. So, where are we going to stop? As far as the story of Yusuf goes, we're going to stop here. So what do we remember? نَحْنُ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ أَحْسَنَ الْقَصَصِ. We will tell you the best of stories. And Qasas, remember, was a generational story. Where did we start off? Do you remember? Remember, there were two brothers. There were 12 brothers all together. But the two that were really good were Yusuf and Binyamin. You remember? And you remember Yusuf had a dream. Do you remember what his dream was about? What was it? 11 stars and the sun and the moon. And what were they doing? Those were actually doing sajda. And when he tells his dad, his dad says, don't tell anyone. And we talked about dreams. And then we saw that his brothers were really jealous of him because they thought their father liked him and didn't like them as much. They didn't realize all they had to do was become good. But they thought that if they got rid of him, their father would like them a lot more. And so they made up this plot and they kidnapped him. Not only did they kidnap him, they put him inside inside a jub. They put him inside a well. And they left him and they walked away. And today we saw how a caravan comes. That's lots of people who are a trading caravan, and they find him in the well, but they sell him. They sell him for 20 silver pieces. And now where we've left is where he's accused of something that he didn't do, and he's put into prison. But we're going to go to Karbala first, okay? So when we go to Karbala, today we talk about somebody called Hur. He was a very, very brave soldier. So much so that Yazid made him the general of his army. Now that's something really great. That's in charge of the army as such. Now let's see what Hur did. So he was loyal to his army, to the person who owned him, as such, who paid his salary. So he was told, don't let them go to Kufa. So he stopped Imam Hussein going to Kufa. Number 2, when Imam Hussein camped his tents near the water, it was Hur and his people who asked for them to move the tents away from the river. Number 3, he's the one who said, we can't fight this battle on our own. So he asked for more soldiers to come. Number 4, on the 7th of Muharram, water was stopped to Imam Hussein and his children. And he was one of them who was in the meeting when they stopped water. I'd like you to close your eyes now and think. Think of it as the day of Ashura. Think of these children, these little children. The scorching heat, it's so hot. The sand is so hot. Now just imagine that the children, they think they've got thorns in their throats. They haven't had food. They haven't had water. They're so thirsty. Everything hurts. Hur steps out in the morning of Ashura, and he sees that his soldiers are putting water on the feet of the horses. It's so hot that the horses were finding it hot. So they were pouring water onto the feet of the horses. And in the distance, he could hear the voices of the children. And they were saying, Al-Atash, Al-Atash, we are so thirsty. We are so thirsty. We want something to drink. It is said that at night, He dreamt that he saw Sayyidah Fatima in his dream. And remember, we talked about dreams. And in his dream, she tells him, Khur, what did my son do wrong? What did my son do to you? He changed. You and I can change too. When we do something wrong, we can change and we can make it right. It only takes a moment. In that moment, Khur got his son, got his slave, they got onto the horse and they went to the camp of Imam Hussein. When they got to the edge of the camp, he sent his horse back. And then he asked his son, he said, tie my hands together. And his son tied his hands. And then on his knees, he crawled to Imam Hussein. When he got to the door of the tent, he was so sad. He felt so bad. And he put his head on Imam Hussein's feet. And he said, O son of the most compassionate person, the most kindest of the kindest of people, the greatest sinner in the world has come to you. Do you know what Imam says? Imam said, you're my brother. You're my brother in the world and the hereafter. Your mom named you Hur. Hur means free. You are free in the world and the hereafter. Now listen to what Imam said. I told you all the things Hur did. Imam said, you must forgive me, for you are my guest, and I haven't even got any water to give you. Can you imagine what a phenomenal person Imam Hussein was? Just imagine. You know, sometimes when you think about this, you think, my goodness, what an amazing man. Hur said, I want to go to the battlefield first, but before me, my son. They fight really brave battles. When Hur falls, because he's surrounded, when he falls, he just calls out. He says, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. And Imam runs to him. When Imam runs to him, he has a gash on his forehead. Imam takes out a handkerchief and he ties it around him. And he puts his head in his lap and he thinks, how lucky I am. How lucky I am that the son of Fatima has put my head on his lap. So let us pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq, when I say the tawfiq, to make us of those who are able to forgive people, to make us of those who ask for tawbah, to make us of those who are such phenomenal people. Make us good and make us be able to understand the stories of the Quran so we can take lessons from them. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. So I know I forgot the Marthiyah at the beginning. So we're going to recite both Marthiyah and Nohas together. Are you ready? So if you've got the book, it's called Ya Hussein. Oh, there you go. That's it. You might have a version of it, but they're all exactly the same. And the Marthiyah we're going to read is on page 10. It's Marthiyah number 8. It's called Let Me Tell You About Karbala. And then we will recite a Noha, which is Hal min Nasri Yansurna, which is Marthiyah number 15. Okay, so are you ready? All right, let's go to Marthiyah number 8 and let's see if we can recite it. Okay, can I have a salawat? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Let me tell you about Karbala, the events of Ashura and Hussein ibn Ali. When they left Medina with all the family, Sughra did not know they'd never come back. Fatima Zahra, accept our sympathies for your family. There was Qasim, the son of Hassan. His body was trampled by the horse's hooves. Fatima Zahra, accept our sympathies for your young son. Then there was On and Muhammad. These sons of Zainab gave their lives for the cause of Islam. Fatima Zahra, accept our sympathies for your two young sons. There was Ali Akbar, the image of the Prophet. How could Hussein carry his young son? Fatima Zahra, accept our sympathies for Ali al-Akbar. There was little Asghar who was so thirsty. His thirst was quenched by an arrow. Fatima Zahra, accept our sympathies for the young babe. There was Abbas, the protector of Hussein's army. Both his arms cut, he couldn't bring water home. Fatima Zahra, accept our sympathies for the valiant Abbas. All of them died while Hussein was still there. Who will be there when Hussein is martyred? Fatima Zahra, accept our sympathies for Hussein. He gave his life whilst praising Allah. Even his last breath was in prostration. Fatima Zahra, accept our sympathies for the Savior of Islam. Okay, we're now going to recite the Noha. So you're going to do Matam. Put your right hand on your chest and do Matam. So it's Marthia or Noha number 15 on page 20 in the book, which is called Ya Hussein. Maybe you've downloaded it now from the website. هل من ناصر ينصرنا هل من مغيث يغيثنا هل من ناصر ينصرنا هل من مغيث يغيثنا. Is there any helper to help us? Is there any rescuer to rescue us? On the plains of Karbala stood my Imam all alone. The deen of Muhammad in jeopardy. Yazid destroying all Muhammad stood for. هل من ناصر ينصرنا هل من مغيث يغيثنا. Is there any helper to help us? Is there any rescuer to rescue us? His call is for all Muslims everywhere. Respond and rise like Hussein, O Ummah. Don't let the likes of Yazid change your values. Give all you have and achieve salvation. هل من ناصر ينصرنا هل من مغيث يغيثنا. Is there any helper to help us? Is there any rescuer to rescue us? A martyr never dies, O people. He lives to light the way for others. Give your life away like Hussein did in defending the deen of Islam. هل من ناصر ينصرنا هل من مغيث يغيثنا. Is there any helper to help us? Is there any rescuer to rescue us? We have a salawat. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Let's recite Surah Al-Fatiha for all the marhumin, especially those of your family. Recite the Surah Al-Fatiha for those who are ill and for those who are in trouble. Then we will recite the dua for protection and then the ziyarah for Ba Abdullah. You ready? Let's start. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. صدق الله العظيم. Close your eyes, look down, ask Allah to give the thawabs to all the marhumin, especially those of your family. Pray for those who are ill and pray for those who are in trouble. And pray for Allah to relieve us of this pandemic. لي خمسة أطفي بها حر الوباء الحاتمة المصطفى والمرتضى وأبناهما والفاطمة. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. في أمان الله كريم. إن شاء الله I'll see you tomorrow. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم.